Good morning, everyone. Welcome all of you joining the webinar organized by the Occupational Health Center. Today, the topic is about working with chronic conditions and presented by Lorraine Mischuk. So I will have her introduction later after that. So we would like to acknowledge that we are on the Treaty 1 territories. The traditional territories of the Assiniboine, Greek, OG Greek, Dakota, Indigenous peoples, and the homeland of Métis Nation. We respect the treaties that we were made on these territories, and we acknowledge that we are all treaty people. At the Occupational Health Center, we commit ourselves to a process of reconciliation with Indigenous communities. So for the participation in this session, to ask the question, you could post your question in the chat session on the right side of your screen. The presenter will try to answer it after the presentation at the Q&A. And you can also raise hand by clicking the middle of the menu. The host will ask you to unmute yourself for your turn when you want to speak. We may not be able to answer all the questions in the Q&A session. Please contact with us afterwards to follow up. You can notice that this session is being recorded for review after and also shared on the social media. So we would like to let you know that Occupational Health Center is the community health center established in 1983, funded by the Winnipeg Regional Health Authorities. We are currently located on 167 Sherbrooke Street. We provided the services to the Manitoba workers with work-related health issues and work closely with the Joint Workplace Health and Safety Committee with training. So you could book the appointments to see our physician for work-related health issues. We do not need the referral and it is all free. So please also visit our website for more information and the resources. This is now the turn to introduce Lorraine Mischuk. She is the CEO and the managing clinicians at Maximize Human Capabilities. So she is a registered occupational therapist in the province of Manitoba. She has obtained certification in work functional capacity evaluation. She has over more than 30 years of clinical experiences working in individuals with have the sustained complex injuries. Lorraine has operated Maximize Human Capabilities since 1997. She specialized in conducting functional capacity evaluations, job demands analysis, providing psychosocial rehabilitation, gradual return to work and state of work programs, workplace accommodation, economic assessment, and also the training at the workplace, as well as providing medical legal consultation. So to want to visit her website about more about what Lorraine has been done for Manitoba and also internationally, I will put the link of her website later on. So now please join me to welcome Lorraine.
Thank you very much. Firstly, it's an honor and a pleasure to be asked to be here today. The Occupational Health Center has a very important place in the community. We're supporting individuals to be able to work, and working with chronic conditions is a challenge, and what we're going to speak about today. So just to firstly understand the lay of the land, so to speak, chronic conditions make up about 1/3 of our population, or just over 1/3 of our population live with one or more chronic diseases, which limit us in our ability to carry out our day, be that at work or at home or in the community. So in terms of the breakdown of what this looks like, the costs, most fall into, or the highest costs fall into what we call neuropsychiatric disorders. So that involves both neurology and psychiatry. So for example, attention deficit disorders, cognitive deficit disorders, seizures, depression, anxiety, eating disorders, migraine headaches, addictions. Next is cardiovascular diseases, which make up 12.1 billion per year. And musculoskeletal diseases, this is not musculoskeletal injury, but rather chronic diseases such as osteoarthritis or rheumatoid arthritis. And fourthly are digestive diseases, including, for example, inflammatory bowel diseases. In terms of the costs, so Stats Canada has put out some information where we can see in terms of what are some of the indirect costs. Absenteeism from work are the large cost, but certainly the real cost to the workplace and workers is much higher. And what is not reported are the costs related to presenteeism, so i.e. lost productivity, changing jobs, retention, and underemployment, referring to when individuals do have a disability, they are often unable to fully use their skills in education. So they're underemployed in their current capacities. And other research tells us that the costs are even greater. The Institute of Work and Health in Ontario, of which I have the link on the slide, provides us a lot of information in this area, and has been conducting research to provide us with some current evidence. So what do chronic conditions look like? Well, we can't see them, and that's part of the big issue. When you can see someone that has an amputation, you see someone using a walker or in a wheelchair, you see something concrete, it's visible, so you understand that, this must have an impact in our day and how we can manage work. And it's not just about work, because we also have all of our daily things that we need to do before we even get to work, i.e. Getting dressed, having a shower, preparing a meal, looking after our families, our homes, living in the community. And so many of the chronic conditions are what we'd call episodic. So they're intermittent, and so they have flares. So you'll have a flare up, things will settle down, and then again, we'll have another episode. And we don't see the signs and symptoms. They're not typically apparent to others. So they're invisible and they're unpredictable. And that can be difficult for the individual to manage. And of course, for that to be managed in the workplace. Some examples that are common in the workplace are depression, anxiety, again, the arthritis, MS, and some of these irritable bowel or these digestive issues, in addition to migraine headaches. So what are some of the challenges? Well, workers are really uncertain as to whether or not they should share their health condition. We have privacy legislation which protects the worker, so that we're disclosing only what they need to disclose, which is abilities and limitations as it relates to their work, but not their diagnosis, not their prognosis, but rather just specifics in terms of abilities and limitations for work. But that can lead to a lot of questions on the employer side in terms of what does that mean? They may see changes in performance over time. There's absences that are unexpected. They're using sick time unpredictably, is difficult to manage in terms of getting the work done. And they're not sure how to have a discussion around this. The employer doesn't have a lot of information, so then it's difficult to be able to support an individual with work and accommodation if they don't have a lot of information. So it's kind of a balance between the two in terms of what you do. So it's that protection of the privacy, yet fostering communication, needing support and accommodating workplace needs and workplace productivity. So it's challenging. And it's not an easy thing. I've been working in this area, as Tiffany indicated, for many years. And every situation I find is unique. There isn't a recipe that I could say works for everyone. What we do find, and certainly this is interesting, there's been some current research done by the Institute of Work and Health on sharing of health information to employers. And It's amazing how many individuals do not want to share their health condition to their employer. And they will go to great lengths so that no one will know at work that they're having a problem. Because work is very important to us, and it's very therapeutic. As an OT, it's a big part of what we do is having individuals foster and facilitate them to be as independent in their work role as much as possible, without letting go of their individual roles in terms of as for themselves, in looking after themselves, in terms of independence at home, and also with their families. And what that looks like is going to be different for all of us, because certainly my independence at age 20, a single living in an apartment, is very different than with a family and a household and caring for aging parents. Well, in addition to work. So our roles will change over time, as will the development of a condition, which will also impact these roles. And so what individuals commonly do is they will hide their condition at work. They'll give up things outside of work first. So we'll look at readapting and changing family roles as to who does what. When I'm working with an individual, spend a lot of time reviewing this and figuring this out, so that when they know they have particular demands at work on certain days, that those days for their roles outside of work are lighter and not as demanding. So they can plan and pace their energy level, because we have a certain amount of energy level in one day, and that's really all we have. And so then trying to conserve that energy is really important. So anticipating where there might be problems, where they're going to need more energy at work because of the demands, and rejigging things at home and outside of work in order to manage that. And often individuals can tick along with this for years, their entire working career, and it's never been a problem. Unfortunately, it doesn't always work that way. Demands change at work, things change in our condition, things change at home, and then we end up in a crisis mode where the individual has nothing left to give up and now is interfering at work. And usually by that point, their work-life balance has been quite out of balance, and it's been affecting their mental health as well. So if it's a condition that, say, for example, is affecting their digestive system, or it's pain, in terms of chronic pain, in terms of physical pain, there'll be always a mental health component that goes along with it. So in terms of how do we cope at work, well, modifying how we do things. And the individual doing the work is the expert in their job. They know their work in terms of are there ways they can streamline things? Are there ways that they can, batch their certain job tasks to make it more efficient? They'll anticipate these types of things in order to be able to manage as best they can. And an interesting statistic that the Institute of Work and Health has put out, that 35 to 50% of individuals who have arthritis have never told a supervisor. So the workplace doesn't know, but they have shared with a coworker or someone they can trust. And that brings me to the next point in terms of how is it that we can foster that ability to share with a supervisor or the workplace versus a coworker, because the individual's perception of the support in the workplace is key. And how, what is a supportive workplace, which is a whole other topic. We'll kind of dabble in that a little bit, but certainly that it's the individual whether they perceive or not. We may think it's a supportive workplace, but it's the individual's perception, which we may believe is accurate or not accurate. That's really irrelevant. It's the individual's perception. And so workplaces often have policies and practices in place for accommodation, things like flex time, or they'll make ergonomic changes. And interestingly, in terms of the surveys that have been conducted by Institute of Work and Health, is that these are really not used as often as one may think. And so, so is that ability, and we often tend to think of those as a end resort versus looking at those earlier on in the game. So a challenge for the employee: do I share or do I not share? And if I do share, how much do I share? And particularly thinking back that, again, these are episodic and these are long-term. This is not an acute injury where I fell, I broke my leg, I'm in a cast, I have some changes in mobility which affect my job, but I'm expecting by 3 months, 4 months, I'm pretty well getting back to normal. Maybe it's going to hang a little bit longer depending what the job is, but I'm pretty well done. Where here, these are long-term, they're episodic, so they will have flare-ups and then things will settle down again. And so if the workplace follows a process where you need to have information from the treating practitioner, well, then they need to come with that form filled out. And that usually comes with a cost, because it's rare that that form will be filled out without a fee. And that fee is at the cost to the employee. And so how often does that need to happen? Does it need to happen every 6 months? Is it every year? Is it more often? So that's an additional cost to the employee. And when these forms are filled out and notes are brought in, depending on the processes, there can be a period of time where the disability management process and HR is now reviewing, and then that can be a worrisome component for the employee because they're now not sure what's going on. Why is it taking so long? I've had this condition before. Why now am I being treated differently? And this type of worry and fear can exacerbate in the individual, which affects that whole trust and perception of a supportive workplace. And so, because certainly we know as individuals, we're curious. And curiosity is a good thing, but it can also be a challenging thing too, because depending who that form is filled out by. So if that form for the employer is filled out by a general practitioner, or we think, okay, or a chiropractor or a physiotherapist or an occupational therapist, okay. But now it's being filled out by a neurologist or a psychiatrist. And then you go, oh, I wonder what that's all about. And so then we're all curious. We want to know, what is the diagnosis? What does that mean? Do we really need to know the diagnosis and what that means? Because what happens is that, or what can happen is that can influence our thoughts in terms of this individual, in terms of what they can or cannot do, what that's going to impact long term. Individuals are worried because then that may impact their ability for future opportunities in that workplace in terms of advancement. And so then sharing can be an issue. And so, and it's also an issue on the other side in terms of the workplace. So supervisors and management are noticing changes in an individual's performance. There may be changes in their mood or their demeanor. So Johnny used to be pretty positive, pretty easy to get along with. Now he seems to be a little bit short-tempered and impatient, and we're not sure what's going on. And how do we approach this? And so, often supervisors want to approach it, but we don't know how to approach it. And you're not sure how to be able to do this in a supportive manner without it looking as a checking up on someone. And the individual may or may not be willing to share any information. And so this can lead to stressful situations, particularly when there's a mental health condition. And my experience has been that this mental health component with everything, it's just a matter of degree. And so, so then the individual, may not even recognize that they're having a problem. And so it's helpful then, because our work is a community. We are our own community, and so often we see our coworkers more often than we see our families and friends, depending on what that scenario is. And so we'll see those subtle changes in the individual. We'll notice changes over time. where sometimes we don't even notice it ourselves and our families aren't noticing it. And so it is very important for, if there are some changes in someone's health, that we support that. So again, it's that, how do we communicate that, and how do we do that in a supportive manner? In larger organizations, then they may have formal processes, and that'll be triggered by their workplace management in terms of attendance management, with mandatory meetings. And when it comes to, so this ends up promoting a lot of anxiety with the individual because of worry and concern as to what does this mean. There can be pressure in terms of disclosing what's going on, and disability can turn into a performance problem. And unfortunately, this is where I've been called in on several occasions over the years, where an individual has been reprimanded for work performance, but it's actually a health condition. And the health condition was partially known, but not fully known. And so now I've been asked to do a detailed assessment in terms of what their work abilities and limitations are, so that we can properly accommodate them in a medical accommodation. And so, but when it's already come to that point, and there's typically union involvement, if it's unionized work environment, by that point, there's already a lot of trust and confidence that's been eroded. So rebuilding that trust is really important. And certainly I've seen, and the data from the Institute of Work and Health supports this as well, is that some workers, particularly with mental health conditions, they would sooner admit to a performance problem rather than disclosing they have a mental health issue. And that because of the stigma that still exists. We're starting to slowly break the tip of the iceberg, or just see the tip of the iceberg with this, with some of the public promotions that are going on with, for example, Bell Let's Talk, or Canada Life's work with workplace mental health. We certainly have a long way to go in terms of accepting individuals that have a mental health condition or any other chronic condition. And so I look at it this way. We can look at it, are we disabled or are we differently abled? And so if we just take a moment to reflect our own selves, we all have areas of strength and areas of weakness. Certainly, my area of strength, I work with individuals. I have no problem talking. I'll find a way to connect with them. It's challenging as it is, but I'm not going to be a neurosurgeon. That's just not my thing. And, and again, we all have areas of strength and weakness. And so, and what I find is that many individuals, I've been seeing over the last number of years, individuals that have adult attention deficit disorders, so ADHD, but they haven't been diagnosed until they were an adult. So basically they had a milder form growing up. They may have had some supports in school. They got through either training or college or university, but now in the workplace, they don't have those additional supports and they're really struggling. If that's not a good match in terms of what the job or environmental demands are for what they're able to manage. And so then it's a matter of them learning how to manage their condition moving forward and having kind of a better match in terms of what the workplace environment or workplace demands are, so that they can manage their work. And then now we're just differently abled, and no one knows the difference whether we have an issue or not. And I've seen individuals that are professionals. They're social workers, they're nurses, they're OTs that have this condition. Sorry. And so with that, promoting support for the individuals is key. And how do we do that? Good question. Again, that's a huge topic onto itself. But some basic tips that I can provide today are that ongoing communication rather than communication only when it's a problem. And so that's something that when I'm working with individuals in a return to work, that I often will also work with the workplace in terms of how to best foster communication. And so, for example, I had an individual that was coming back to work, and this person had been off for a while, and there was lots of anxiety, additional anxiety that was in preparing them to go back. And so we had negotiated with the workplace in terms of some additional retraining, because workplace changes had taken place in terms of their technology system, and buddying them up with someone. And also the expectation, we adjusted initially just so that to kind of manage some of that anxiety. But the other thing is they perceived that the workplace was not supportive. And so what I did is I had the supervisor, rather than wait for the formal meeting every few weeks to review the return to work, I had the supervisor just walk through the department and just casually, say to the individual, hi, John, how's it going? Right? How's your day going? Any questions so far? I'm here. And just that simple exchange was enough to be able to turn it around from the individual perceiving that the workplace was not supportive to the workplace being supportive. So I can't stress enough that ongoing open communication. And even though we try not to judge, we all do it. So judging the person on what they're doing in terms of their productivity versus that presenteeism or how often they're there. Because if they do, again, that episodic nature of their condition, if they do have to take some time away, but they tend to, I find that individuals really want to work and they want to do their best. And so giving that positive reinforcement for the positive behavior versus, only talking to them when things aren't going well. And it's amazing how often people get joked, feel the recipient of being of jokes about their challenges. And so it may sound pretty basic, but don't joke about someone's challenges, and because it happens more often than one realizes. Now, helping with planning and breaking up the job tasks into parts, it may seem basic, but it's often, individuals can become a little overwhelmed. So just helping them say, okay, how do we make this a little bit easier? How can we break things up into tasks that are a little bit smaller? And recognizing that there may be another way of doing it. We all will approach our work in our own unique way. And so that recognizing that the way I approach it is going to be different than the way someone else approaches it, as long as the work gets done and it's done to the satisfaction of what the expectation is, our method and our road to get there should be respected. Now, in terms of a flexible work schedule, working from home. Now, this is something that, over the years we'd ask, well, can we add a component that we can work from home? Or start with a little bit of work from home. And that would always be, and I would say always, because that it would be received with skepticism and say, well, there's no way that we can monitor whether someone's actually working and whether they're going to be productive. And so COVID has helped all of this because of having to quickly navigate employees working from home and discovering that actually individuals are very productive. And actually more productive because you don't have parts of your day that you would normally have, such as the commute time to and from work, which takes up time. Even the grooming and preparing takes time. If you are you're very sensitive and aware of your condition, you don't want others to know, that takes additional energy to be able to put up a good front. Whereas if you're working from home, you don't have to do that. So we're actually conserving energy, which means we have more to be able to give to our job tasks. So it's actually been more beneficial. And so I've dialogued with other OTs across the country and internationally about this. And we're all saying, yes, this has given us finally some evidence to show that it is possible, and it's actually very beneficial to be able to have the ability to work from home, either fully or partially. You know, think of individuals that have irritable bowel syndrome, Crohn's disease, you know, if they're, you know, needing to be close to a washroom, if they need to go frequently, there's the stigma of, there they go again. How much time are they spending in the washroom? And we're focused on that versus how good of a job they're doing with their job tasks and that everything is getting done. And so that flexible work schedule, I can't say enough about it in terms of how well that can work. And there's all kinds of mechanisms that we put in place to make sure the job tasks get done. Coming back to that work-life balance piece, then that gives you better opportunity to be able to manage what other things you're managing, such as caring for your children, taking them to doctor's appointments when they're ill, you're care providing for aging parents, and you have to tend to these things in work hours in terms of, again, taking them to medical appointments and whatnot, where you'd be having to take time away from work and manage your own condition, again, attending these appointments. If you are able to flex your work schedule, then it won't interfere so much with your job, and you're able to then get these things done. So really, there is no one size fits all, but rather we're all individuals. And so how we approach that is very much on, I believe, on an individual basis. And how I look at it in terms of, well, if we turn the roles around, so to say, so if you were the individual with a chronic condition, how would you want to be treated? And that's and often that just gives us some chance to be able to think about that. So what I want to do is, in closing, I want to share a video with you that talks just a little bit about that. So I'm just going to end my slideshow and pull up this video.
So what is empathy, and why is it very different than sympathy? Empathy fuels connection. Sympathy drives disconnection. Empathy, it's very interesting. Teresa Wiseman is a nursing scholar who studied professions, very diverse professions where empathy is relevant, and came up with 4 qualities of empathy. Perspective taking, the ability to take the perspective of another person or recognize their perspective as their truth. Staying out of judgment, not easy when you enjoy it as much as most of us do. Recognizing emotion in other people and then communicating that. Empathy is feeling with people. And to me, I always think of empathy as this kind of sacred space when someone's kind of in a deep hole and they shout out from the bottom and they say, I'm stuck, it's dark, I'm overwhelmed. And then we look and we say, hey, I'm down. I know what it's like down here, and you're not alone. Sympathy is, ooh, it's bad, no, you want a sandwich? Empathy is a choice, and it's a vulnerable choice, because in order to connect with you, I have to connect with something in myself that knows that feeling. Rarely, if ever, does an empathic response begin with at least. And we do it all the time, because you know what? Someone just shared something with us that's incredibly painful, and we're trying to silver lining it. I don't think that's a verb, but I'm using it as one. We're trying to put the silver lining around it. So I had a miscarriage. Oh, at least you know you can get pregnant. I think my marriage is falling apart. At least you have a marriage. John's getting kicked out of school. At least Sarah is an A student. But one of the things we do sometimes in the face of very difficult conversations is we try to make things better. If I share something with you that's very difficult, I'd rather you say, I don't even know what to say right now. I'm just so glad you told me. Because the truth is, rarely can a response make something better. What makes something better is connection.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Lorraine. Appreciate it. You give us such a great, overview about the chronic conditions in the workplaces, how the workplace to give you the support, how the co-work to do. So we got some comment and question on the chat area. I just want to read it to you. The first one is about initiative night bell, let's talk. Better described as marketing, in my opinion. This raises awareness but not systemic change. Most of the employers do not even apply the CSA standard at their workplaces. This initiative takes money away from. So, for example, the United Way, as well as those who really need it, cannot access those services.
I agree. And really it is. It's just a kind of a media campaign to just, really say, yes, we have mental health conditions, but it doesn't provide any substance, right? But it's a start to at least bring out awareness that mental health conditions are common. We will all be affected at some point by a mental health condition. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. We will all experience changes in our lives, changes in jobs, that are sudden and unexpected, changes in health, a death in the family. This will occur. And so this will affect us. And so that, building that resiliency with our mental health, we need community supports, family supports. And so we're, knowing where to get these supports, and the workplace provides us support, right? Because the workplace is a community unto itself. And so, we'll see changes in individuals. And so having that understanding and say, well, someone's, they have a health condition and now their aging parent has passed away. Of course, it's going to be more challenging and more demanding. So whatever supports we can offer, right? And so those that have, more formalized structures in terms of EAP programs and whatnot to be able to provide support when needed. But it's just that community support, as showed in the video, just that we're there and we try to understand, even though we'll never be able to put ourselves in someone else's shoes, but just to say we're here. And what can we do to assist you, if anything, at this time? And so, yes, thank you. And it would be nice if there was a requirement to put in supports in the workplace versus just a nice thing to do. And hopefully that will happen, just like we have requirements for, changes in the workplace in terms of training and lifting and carrying procedures and whatnot. And hopefully we'll have very specific things for mental health in the future. Hopefully I
Thank you. Thanks, Lorraine. Another comment is from the chat is, this is great. In the efforts to build individual resiliency skill and how recognizing one's potential as a differently abled persons, right? Are you familiar with any peers-based support programs or approaches inside and outside the workplace?
Yes, and actually peer support is sometimes and often I direct individuals to peer support, because if they're accessing a healthcare professional, we only want that to occur for a window of time, right? You don't want to have to be seeing as someone continuously. We want to be able to build their own support network and their own resiliency. And often I'll see individuals, they don't want to see, say, for example, a mental health professional, but they would sooner go and attend peer support. And so mood disorders in Manitoba is one example where they offer peer support. And in terms of what do workplaces offer their own peer support programs? I know the RCMP has been doing some work where they have their own peer support initiatives. And I actually believe it's a really important thing to have. And it would be really important for all workplaces to have some type of, it doesn't have to be formal, but even an informal peer support program. Because there's a huge stigma with going to see a healthcare professional. And also, we don't want individuals to have to rely on us. We want them to build their own toolbox with their ability for what they need, so they can be as differently abled as possible. We're all differently abled. That's just my opinion. It's just a matter of what our areas of strength and weaknesses are. I hope I answered your question.
Thanks, Lorraine. Lisa have asked you, how can individuals access your services?
How do they access my services? They send me an email. Because we're private, we're not covered by Manitoba Health. And so I always see if individuals have any coverage for occupational therapy, if they have access to a healthcare benefit plan. Unfortunately, there is not a lot of coverage for OT. They might have a healthcare spending account. That's been one of my pet peeves as to why benefit plans don't have a lot of coverage for OT, but hopefully that will change in the future.
Lorraine, would you mind to put your email on the chat? Then have all the audience to reach out you, please. Thank you. Another comment is saying that the peer support groups in the workplace, I think, can make a world of difference in making connections.
And really, in that, thank you for bringing that up, because it's those connections is what carries us forward. There's been a lot. I'm just going to bring a little bit of additional research that goes on. There's a researcher called Dr. Stephen Porges out of the US, and he does his work is with it's called polyvagal theory, and it's a lot of work with individuals with trauma and mental health and chronic conditions. And a large part of that is having that social support. So how we can overcome this is by having that those social support networks and systems are very important. And right to our nervous system, and that's how we help individuals to overcome adversity in terms of having trauma experiences. And as a whole continuum, you don't have to have PTSD. It can be trauma as an entire continuum. And so having those connections and peer support is, we're regular people, right? And we all bring our own life experiences to the table. And so then we can share. And that's a big part of it, is that we share with each other as to, and we're open with that. And I share with my clients as well. There's this old school of thought is that you have to not share anything and you're the expert and they're the patient. No. We've changed that over the years, thank goodness, is that you do some sharing because it shows that you're human and that we also experience these challenges, and that it's that connection to help individuals to build some of that resiliency. And so I can't say enough about peer support. There's, for training for peer support, there's Robin Priest. I'll put it I'll see if I can find it quickly and put it in the chat. Robin Priest and, now I'm blocking on her name. I can't remember the other one's name. She used to be at the Mood Disorders, and now they have their own company, and they do a lot of peer support training. So if it doesn't come to mind, I'll just do a quick Google search and I'll find it. Or I can send it to Tiffany later and she'll be able to share it. But they do a lot of peer support training. You don't have to be part of a company organization. You can just join in. They're not expensive. Now with COVID, so many things have moved to online training, and and we're able to assist with that. Okay, and the book title here, I'll just put this in here. So it's Doctor, and what's really helpful is these folks all have websites, and they have YouTube talks and TED Talks. And he's even got polyvagal pocketbook or something. Polyvagal theory. You can look at them on Amazon, and you'll see. Sorry, I didn't get the word theory on there. I missed one letter. And so, but you'll see he's got, I believe it's called polyvagal.org, if I'm not mistaken. He has a new public website to be able to educate the public. I've heard him speak several times, and it's a very helpful resource. Charlotte Sitnick, thank you. It's Charlotte Sitnick and Robin Priest, and they have they do peer support training. Thank you to Ginger for blocking on Charlotte's name, and so they do a lot of. I believe that's how I know about the RCMP, because they've been doing some work with the RCMP with establishing their peer support program. And so just take a look at, you'll find their website. I get emails from them. I'm on their email list, which tells me when they're having training. And so it's just a matter of doing a quick Google search to find what the name of their website is. I know they do have some YouTube videos as well, because I've watched some of Robin's YouTube videos as well. And yes, and they are great. Both of them. They make a good team, for sure.
This is all about the teamwork right here. Yeah, so is there more questions and comments you want to share with Lorraine before we wrap up the session this morning? I saw someone has raised hand earlier. I'm not quite sure, but after that is lower the hand. Is there anyone want to speak? I could allow you to talk.
Oh, I found the website for, it's robinpriest.com. So I'm just going to copy it and put it in the chat here.
Great, thank you, Lorraine. So I'll notice that the section is already recorded, so I could upload it and share to you guys, later today or sometime this week. So then you could watch the webinar later and also share with anyone who could not make it, right? So that would be great. Yeah, just want to last check. Okay, can you also share chat with over others over the email? I could see if I could share the chat. Yeah, and then send it to you guys. Oh,
they're thinking that only what I have in my chat is only going to the panelists. Oh, so maybe I have
to. Yes, I could copy it again and then send it out.
Okay.
There you go.
Thanks for that, Linda.
And then yeah. Awesome. So once again, thank you, Lorraine, for such a great section, spending close to an hour with us and sharing the video and the resources. And thank you all of you to join the webinar. And then I hope you could take something for yourself and then to your coworker and then at your workplaces. And then wishing all of you have a wonderful and safe summer. Hope you could enjoy some great weather, right? So, and then we won't have any section offer in July and August. We will send you the notice later in August about upcoming sessions starting in the fall, probably will be September. So, bye. Take care, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.